What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Taste Like Music. Jason here, joined today with a special guest, Eric Slick of the band Dr. Dog. Solo career going as well. New album coming out soon. We'll talk about a little bit of all of that. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me. This is a delight.
People probably best know you from Dr. Dog. You've got several solo records under your belt at this point. Before we dive into all of that, and I'm sorry if you're sick of people asking about this, I would like to go back. I think you have maybe one of the craziest music career origin stories of anyone I've ever heard. So can we talk a little bit and go back to the School of Rock in Philly? And
Sure. Yeah. So I was one of the first drum students at the School of Rock in Philly. The program started in 1998, and there were only a handful of guitar students that were there, and they needed a drummer. I was a drummer. I did that for about, geez, 11, 12 years, something like that. And then my sister and I were discovered by a guitarist named Adrian Belew, who is known for his work with King Crimson, Talking Heads Remain in Light, Graceland. I mean, the list kind of goes on. That was the beginning of my touring career. He actually came to the school to do a seminar, and that's how everything came to fruition. We just hung out a lot and hit it off. And then he was like, I actually I'm looking for a drummer, and I'm looking for a bass player. And my sister plays bass. I play drums, so it was pretty insane. And we got to travel the world together for like 3 or 4 years, which is just absolutely mind blowing.
were you up to that point like a prog head? Did you know a lot of his material before he came to the school, or was
Oh, I was a deep prog head, and in fact, I guess this was like the early 2000s. So, we had a CD burner at the house, and I would download stuff from LimeWire and Nutella and all those websites and services, and I would make these big data discs of just, albums I wanted to listen to, and I had a Discman. And on the walks to school, I'd listen to like 80s King Crimson records, which heavily featured Adrian. And I've always sort of had like a love-hate relationship with guitar players, but like Adrian's always been at the top of the heap for me because his playing is so un-guitar-like.
yeah?
It's very noise heavy. It's very like he's trying to sound like other instruments a lot, and I thought that was really fascinating and a really cool approach. And not to mention that like I loved his songwriting and I loved his voice, and just I was a huge fan of everything he was a part of. There was like you know so many cool records that he played on, so I was very very acutely familiar with his work.
Wow. So I guess you knew he was coming to the school. Did you learn songs, or was it just like show up and jam? Or
No, what's funny is he came to do a seminar, and I was in charge of like chauffeuring him around. So I also like helped him carry his amplifier and stuff, and I think he just thought I was like an assistant, which at the time I kind of was. I was teaching drums at the school at that point, and I was just like, if you're creating a situation where I can hang out with him and just like talk to him and laugh, I feel like that would be really fun. Um, so that's how it went. It started as a friend bond first, um, and then it turned into a musical bond. But we didn't really play together until I was called down to Nashville to audition. So that was like 2006 when he called me down.
so there was, even though he, enjoyed playing with you or like jamming with you, there was still additional vetting that happened. He put you through. It wasn't just like,
Yeah,
okay, you're my band.
I think he was terrified. I think he was like, "Why am I?" I think there's a part of him that was like, it'd be cool to play with some people who are enthusiastic and young. But I mean, I was 17, 18 years old when I had the opportunity to play with him for the first time. So I mean, I was nervous beyond belief. And I was very familiar with the King Crimson material, but he also had us learn some solo stuff that I had never heard before. So I'm like having to learn Danny Carey from Tool's drum parts because Danny played on his solo records. My sister's having to learn Les Claypool's bass parts. I mean, we're both like way in over our head.
So,
So I think the audition, he was probably just like, who are these kids? Can they hang? Um, let's give it a shot.
That's awesome. Yeah, so I was aware of that story. I read some interview with you where you were talking about it. But today was the first time this morning I dug in a little on YouTube and saw some videos of the Adrian Belew Power Trio. If anyone wants to look it up, that's what the project was called. And yeah, I mean, it's such a different thing from, Dr. Dog or anything else I've seen you do since. Like, it's kind of interesting. Like, so I'm interested in how you get from that to playing in Dr. Dog. I know for a lot of people, start to get a little older, they start hanging with different people, they get into different stuff. Did you have a shift in kind of what your taste was, or were those other influences kind of there the whole time as well?
That's a good question. I mean, I was a musical omnivore. So like growing up, I listened to everything. I was into King Crimson as much as I was into Mariah Carey. You know, like I loved the Beatles. I loved uh Outkast. I loved Zappa, but I also really loved like neoclassical composition. And I mean, I was just anything that was good music was just something I was interested in. And the Dr. Dog guys came onto the scene in Philly around the same time I started touring with Adrian, and my friends, we ate that shit up. I mean, we loved Dr. Dog's first record, Easy Beat, and then Takers and Leavers, the EP that came out after that. I mean, those were like groundbreaking Philly records. You know, you also have to understand that like the Philly music scene at that point was pretty whatever. You know, we didn't have a ton of stuff going on. We had like an amazing soul history with the Sound of Philadelphia. We had like the sort of late 90s, early 2000s influx of bands like The Roots, where it was like live hip hop. But as far as like a rock band that we could all rally behind, I mean, Dr. Dog was that band. So um, towards the end of my time with Adrian around 2009, I think I was just like kind of wondering what was next, if I was going to continue to be in the prog world forever. And it was sort of this pivotal moment where I was like, I think my heart's telling me I want to try some other things and I want to see what it's like to play in a more, for lack of a better term, straightforward band. And I think there's also, there's been so many parallels with Dr. Dog and the Beatles, and like, it's a funny thing because I think we'll have to live with that forever. But like, I I love both of those bands, so I think what it boils down to is like it's about songcraft. It's about like you know, really making sure a song is airtight. And that was becoming more and more appealing to me. And then that was also around the same time that I started like feeling confident enough to write songs and share them with people. So like I was like, ooh, it'd be cool to, join a band where it's like everybody's a songwriter. That could be a really good experience for me.
Yeah. So is it straight from Adrian to Dr. Dog? Is that
Yeah.
yeah?
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. I mean, I did other things along the way, like I picked up some really funny gigs that we don't need to talk about, but it was mostly just like local things where, I'd play some weird bar in New Jersey at 3 o'clock in the morning, like that was the time period of paying my dues was like 2004 through 2010, even with the Adrian gig being sort of firmly planted, like I uh I was really just trying to pick up any work that I could possibly get. And around that time in Philly there was not a ton of work, but I was just trying to find anything that I could.
Had you already like made yourself known to Dr. Dog before they were looking for someone, or
Yeah, there was all kinds of serendipitous things that happened. Like Dr. Dog played at the Jam on the River in Philly in 2007 when my friend Joe Russo was also playing. So like I got to I got to hang with Joe, but then I was also like, oh shit, that's Dr. Dog, like I'm gonna go say hi to them. And I just made it a point to always introduce myself, and then eventually I became friendly with them. And they took me out for my 21st birthday. They took me to go see the Black Keys, which was like kind of a wild night. Um, so yeah, it was like we had just become really friendly, and then I was um really thinking about quitting touring because I had been kind of chasing my own tail for a couple of years, and I was like, I don't know if this is for me. I don't know if I like this. And it's a lot of, we were doing Dodge Caravan tours where it's like you're just on the road 8 hours, play a show, get to the hotel at 2 or 3 in the morning, and then start all over again. I mean, it was like
Yeah.
pretty wild. I mean, it was also the early days of like there was no Google Maps. We were
Right.
like
Yeah.
we were using maps. We were using Rand McNally, MapQuest. I mean, when we got the GPS, that was a big deal. So, um, we were grinding our gears pretty hard, and I think I was done. And then I ran into Zach, the keyboard player from Dr. Dog, and I was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna be quitting music. I don't think I'm gonna be doing this anymore. And little did I know that Dr. Dog's drummer had just quit. And I said goodbye to him, and then proceeded to walk directly into a pole. So his memory is really funny that like, I was probably nervous, or I was probably just like nervously talking and rambling to him.
So speaking of quitting touring, Doctor, good segue.
Good, good segue, yeah.
So yeah, Doctor Dog stopped touring in what 2021.
Yeah.
Still a band, not broken up.
Yes.
How is that? You don't hear of that very often. Maybe not since the Beatles.
I know. I mean, gosh, we don't want to be compared to them, but yet we keep doing things similarly to them. No, we. What's funny is the decision to stop touring actually came long before like COVID. I think a lot of people thought that the pandemic was like, all right, we're hanging up our hats, because it happened so quickly after things started to reopen is when Dr. Dog announced the farewell tour. But I got the call at the end of 2019 that the band was going to stop touring. And I think there are a lot of reasons why we ended up doing that. But I mean, Dr. Dog, we have toured so hard.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean, the first year that I joined, I think I was on the road for 300 days that year. I think 2010, I was gone more than I was home by an extreme amount. And over the years, we really tried to taper it off. But it becomes a cycle where you have to feed the beast, right? Like if we want to stay afloat as a band and if we want to stay relevant as a band, then you have to book a winter tour every year and then you have to make a record and then you have to be in this cycle. And I think everybody was getting to the point where they felt exhausted by that and it was no longer creatively fulfilling. And we were doing gigs that we took for granted because we were just tired.
right.
So I think we had to make that delineation like, all right, every band should have the ability to say, this is when we're done. We're going to stop touring, meaning that we're going to stop playing shows consecutively for an extended period of time. But now it's put us in this amazing place where we can actually be really selective about what we want to do. And so when we got offered to do Red Rocks and the Mann Center in Philadelphia, it became more of a conversation of like, okay, these are two very manageable things that could be really awesome for us and for the fans. And it's not technically touring because they're not consecutive. And we can actually like really curate the experience to be something that we want and something that would be like really good for us. You know, when you get into that rhythm of doing it all the time, you start to lose sight of what makes it special. And that goes for every band I've ever known. Every band has a moment where it is not fun.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's only made us better. It's only made us like better at communicating with each other. And I have nothing but good things to say about the decision to stop. But we haven't stopped writing or recording, and like we talk all the time. So it's like it was a good choice.
Is
I'm really
there
happy.
is there a record? I think I saw you were can you say that yet?
I feel like I can sort of lightly say that we recorded a bunch of stuff, which is true. Uh, you know, yeah,
Cool.
that's where I'll leave it for you. But I mean, we recorded a ton of music, so who knows when it'll see the light of day.
So obviously, based on what you just said, you feel pretty good about the decision now. Was there when the decision was made, whether you were how much of a part of it what you were, but like was there a how much fear was there at that decision when that happened?
Well, you have to imagine the timing because it was the end of 2019, and I was like, okay, well, maybe this is like cool. Maybe in 2020 I'll, play with some other artists and get out there and try some new experiences. This could be a good thing. And then it was like we did a tour in February, and then March happened, and then it was like, wait a second, everything's gonna okay. We're all the Dr. Dog stuff we have on the table right now is being canceled, and then it was like I just watched a year and a half of work disappear. Um, so it was the worst. It was so terrifying. And I was really, really scared about how things were going to go. And then I was also really scared about when we, announced our farewell tour, how that was going to go. I mean, like the conversations that the conference calls we had leading up to that final tour were so terrifying, talking about like liability insurance and like if somebody gets COVID at your show. I mean, there was so much stuff that we just didn't even know about. So, yeah, there was so much fear.
It's interesting.
It so much fear. But then once we were doing it and once we were out there, it was really feeling like the right decision, and we ended on such a amazing and positive note. Um, that I mean, I can't think of a more like picturesque way to end the touring phase of our career. It was really great.
Cool. So let's talk about some of your solo stuff.
Yeah.
Do you call this new one your third or your fourth?
That's a great question. I keep calling it my third because it's the third like proper song record. But there is a record called Out of Habit that's like a guitar record. That was like me dipping my toe into like, can I release music? Talk
So
about fear.
is it, were you not singing on that record because of what you perceive to be lack of confidence, lack of ability, whatever? Because
all the all the above.
I think you can feel the vocals getting stronger and stronger and stronger as you go. Not, and that's not to say that they're not good on Palisades because I like them a lot, but
No, no, there's a lot of trepidation. And I think part of that was just, yeah, fear of putting myself out there in a way where I'm not in the back. When you're a drummer, you're in the back usually. That wasn't true with Adrian. Adrian had us all up front, but most of the time I'm in the back. I can hide. I can put cymbals in front of my face. Um, and the solo stuff has been such an amazing exercise in just getting more confident as a person. Um, and after Palisades, I started taking vocal lessons really seriously. I was studying with an opera guy, um, who's amazing, and his name is James Taylor, which is just a side note is hilarious because I'd be like, yeah, I have a lesson with James Taylor, but it's not James Taylor. And then now living in Nashville, I've been studying with like uh, a vocal teacher who's predominantly like gospel
oh,
and
cool.
Christian contemporary music. So like she's really funny because I've never had my ass kicked like so hard by a teacher. The first lesson she made me sing Purple Rain.
Oh, wow.
Which I mean that was just like what a humbling experience that was.
The production on the records too is evolving, I think. I mean, I haven't heard the new one in full yet, but from the single, it seems to be kind of like a steady evolution of sound as well, aside from the vocals. Palisades, I listened to a lot when that came out. It was 2017. Kind of a more indie sound on that one.
Yeah, for sure.
Not terribly removed from Dr. Dog, a little bit. Wiseacre, I don't even know exactly. There's more maybe soul, funk sound in it, pop, different different stuff. It's more of a blend of things.
Yeah, the commentary I got after Palisades was like people are like, "Oh, you're so fun to be around," and then like we listen to Palisades and like it doesn't really reflect your personality at all. And I think there's a really interesting thing that happens with songwriters where like, there's who you are as a person and then there's what you create, right? And so like with Palisades, I created something that felt true to me at the time, but then, when you zoom out of yourself, which is a hard thing to do when you're making a record, right? Like having that aerial view and being like, how will people perceive this? Um, it just it was really evident immediately that I needed to try something different, because that was not going to be sustainable. When I did the Palisades tour and tried to play those songs live, the whole set was such a downer. There wasn't a lot of like space on stage to perform it and make it feel like posy, you know.
Yeah,
So with Wiseacre, a lot of that was by design to create songs that would be more fun to play live. And then with the new one, I feel like I've taken that to like an absurd degree. Like the show is going to be just, I'm going to be running the whole time I'm on stage.
cool.
So I'm really excited about that. The sound has evolved, and it's all by design. And I think a lot of that also has to do with my wife, Natalie. Like, she's another person who's always like, yeah, you know, you're such a joyful person. Like, let's put that out there. You know, you really gotta, your personality needs to shine through. And I think with New Age Rage, this new record, it really feels like the culmination of all that work. Um, but it's funny, you know, like a lot of people discover that stuff when they're younger. A lot of people come to those conclusions when they're in their 20s because they start putting out solo records when they're like 18.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be 37 this year, which is crazy. So it's like I kind of feel like I'm just getting started.
So the new single, I'm hearing Talking Heads, Tom Tom Club, maybe a little,
Oh yeah,
some of that kind of stuff in there.
big
Is
time.
is there a lot of that throughout the record, or is that song pretty representative?
Yeah, that song's a pretty big indicator of how the record feels. It's just a lot of like funk and dance and but also like the weirder elements, you know, a lot of like vintage synthesizers and just kind of endless experimentation. I made the record with my friend Andy Mulholt, who has his own project called Special World, but also plays in a band called Speedy Ortiz. And Andy's one of my closest friends, and we spent like countless hours making this record like as weird and as accessible as possible. So we were like, how can we make the songs just like so direct while also kind of subverting the listener's ear into being like, huh, what's that sound? Or like, is that the Taco Bell bong on that song? Is that the AIM sound, the door slam on that song? You know, like there's little Easter eggs kind of planted all throughout the record.
Cool. That's the kind of stuff I love. I like when you can make it as weird as possible without losing kind of like traditional song structure, traditional hooks. That's the sweet spot. Super weird, but still, you know,
Yeah, I mean
relatable.
that's all, and that's all my favorite stuff too. Like Devo is kind of the shining example, right? Like what a strange band.
Yeah.
You know, these guys from Ohio making like robot music. But at the end of the day, like you could sit with a guitar acoustic and play, you could sit with an acoustic guitar, play Devo songs, and they would totally hold up. They would, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I think at the end of the day, like it needs to hold up on its own. I've just never experimented this much with production, and a lot of that has to do with like having unlimited time because I made the record at home. Um, you know, I was like really debating whether or not to go into a studio and like try to assemble a crack team of musicians to play it. And I just thought it would serve the music better to do it in this sort of like, you know, obsessive and granular way.
Is this the first one you did that way?
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, if you unless you count Out of Habit, but I did that at the Dr. Dog studio when it was like the dead heat of summer, and I used the old Tascam 388 machine that they used on all the early records to make that one.
Gotcha. Well, speaking of weird pop music, digging around a little today, I found a track of yours that I didn't know existed, and it on your Bandcamp is a cover of "Can We Still Be Friends."
Yeah,
Uh, I don't know if you know this or not. I am a huge Todd head,
yeah,
and
he's
yeah, I
the
thought it was
best.
really cool. So some of the stuff you did to that track in your cover, I found really interesting and kind of unexpected. You did some things that I wouldn't. It was a pretty straight cover,
Yeah,
but you've got some things going. There's that like low. I don't know if it's like a synth bass or just like this low synth thing that's giving it this kind of I don't know, almost like a dancey sort of propulsion to it, which I thought was really
for
cool.
sure. For sure. You know, and that's really nice of you to say. I'm a massive Todd Rundgren fan. Todd was my first show. My
Mine
parents have
too.
been, oh, no way. So he played close to my house when I was like a month old.
Oh,
And
wow.
my parents you can watch the concert on YouTube. It's like Todd playing an Ovation acoustic with a computer. Um, he was always like so ahead of his time, for better or for worse, you know. And I am just such a massive fan. So when I was thinking about a cover to do, sort of after Wiseacre came out, I was like, well, the song I listened to the most when I was making that record was "Can We Still Be Friends," the Todd version, and then the Robert Palmer version.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, this song is so perfect. You know, how do you improve upon this song? You know, when you cover a song, are you covering it because you love it so much, or because you actually want to give a different perspective? And so when I do covers, I try to do a little bit of both, where like, you know, it's the song, you're getting the song, but then you might get some kind of element that's not in the original track. But yeah, man, what a killer tune. I mean, that's a perfect song. I changed nothing about that song. Todd's the best. I got to interview him,
Oh, wow.
which maybe the most nervous I've ever been in my life.
What was that for?
It was for Talk House
Talk House? I was
podcast.
gonna say, I bet that was Talk House.
It was Talk House. You know, I got an email one day that was like, "Hey, would you be interested in interviewing Todd Rundgren?" And I was like, "Are you joking?" Like, yes. I don't even know what I'm going to ask him. I mean, like, the man can just talk at you for an hour, and it's all the most interesting stuff you've ever heard. So,
Yeah, my first concert, my first real concert, I had seen some like Sharon Lois and Bram stuff before it, but I think I was 7. It was like 91, might have been like the second Wind tour
okay,
at the Byam Theater here in Pittsburgh. So yeah,
nice.
that was the beginning. He came like sliding out on his knees in like a glow in the dark skeleton suit thing, and just
You know,
hooked since.
he is quite the showman. Um, I would love to see him now, but I feel like I always miss him, or I'm on tour when he's touring through. But that band that he's been playing with for years, like the guys from the Tubes, like they're so great.
I've seen them maybe 6 times in total. I've seen that band with Jesse Grass, who recently passed away, and
Mm,
Prairie Prince on drums from the Tubes.
of
And
course.
yeah, they were great. But I actually saw him even more recently on the global tour with Dame Funk opening up.
Really?
Yeah,
Dame Funk opened?
opened, and I think if I remember correctly, was on stage with Todd like for half the show. Yeah.
Whoa. That's nuts. I had no idea. But I mean, of course. I mean, there's definitely uh a synergy there between the two artists for sure.
it
And
was it was Todd, Dame Funk, and 2 backing singers. That was the whole thing.
whoa, crazy. I mean, that's the thing though. It's like Todd's just gonna do what he wants to do, and I think that's really cool. Like, I think it's wild that a record like A Wizard or True Star has had this resurgence because of, I feel like it was because of Tame Impala, but like it was only because the Tame Impala record, like Lonerism kind of sounded like A Wizard or True Star, but like,
I think it's I mean it was definitely Tame Impala, but I think Rado and Foxygen
well, yeah.
and the Lemon Twigs, and I think all those guys have kind of brought Todd back into the spotlight a bit.
Rado told me that he had to take a long extended break from Todd because he listened to it so obsessively that he's like, it's all I listened to for like 3 years was just Todd Rundgren. Any Todd record, that's all I listened to. I'm like, yeah, makes sense.
I take about 1 month a year and go deep back into Todd, and I'm kind of doing
Uh,
that right now. So
the one that's been the standby for the last couple years is Healing. That one's been really a great, just a great record to dive into. There's so much weird stuff going on, and I feel like he was really starting to get good sounds in his home studio. Like, yeah, that record's really
his
cool.
lyric writing around that time was getting really interesting too.
Yeah, he's like talking about meditation and yeah, I mean a lot of topics I love and relate to. But like, yeah, just so many cool things going on. He is ahead of his time always.
So any other, how about this, like interesting things that you were listening to, maybe deep cut things that people aren't so familiar with that influenced the new record?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that influence the new record. The band Yellow Magic Orchestra, I would say, is the premier influence in my life these days. Like, I'm constantly inspired by them, their approach to music, their approach to the visual element. I mean, they're so visionary and so amazing. And then there's a constant rotation of things. I mean, there's a lot of Chicago bands that I really love. A lot of people that I get to collaborate with in other projects, like the band Phenome from Chicago. They sing on the record. Liam Kazar, who also plays with Kevin Morby, who I play with. He's another guy that I think is just like so great. There's a record by Charlotte Adigéry that and Bolus Pupil that came out that's absolutely dynamite. And I think like really just singular in how it sounds and kind of reminds me of like all the things I love about Talking Heads. Like it's funny, but it's also dancey and it's also like super serious and talking about stuff that's relevant to the world. And yeah, I mean, then there's like bands like Deerhoof that will always inspire me. Just like the things that they represent and the things that they stand for are things that I agree with, and their whole like ethos about how DIY they are is so cool to me. How they kind of are like a self-sustaining uh, atmosphere. Um, Trying to think of anything else that's like off the bat, but I also just love like super dumb pop stuff too. Or quote unquote dumb. But oh, you know what's not dumb? There's this guy Tizo Touchdown that I'm obsessed with. And he has a song called Mood Swings that they play a lot on WNXP here in Nashville. And I just think that song is so cool and so weird and like kind of sounds like the Gap band and like early 80s hard funk, but then also has like this uh heavy overdrive bridge section that like has all these vocal pitching effects and like it's really cool. It's like I love that he's taken stuff that sounds kind of retro and then like recontextualize it.
Oh yeah, so some stuff there for me to check out that I'm not familiar with. Tizo Touchdown rings a bell. I don't know why I know that name, but yeah, I'll check some of that out. Especially, it'll be fun to kind of like hear the record and then try to sample some of that stuff and see where it fits in. Liam Kazar, though, I loved his record from 2021 or whatever year it was, and I saw him with
Yeah.
Sam Evian.
Oh yeah, Sam's new stuff is great too.
Yeah, I'm looking
Uh
forward to the new record.
Yeah, Sam is another one who I've been friends with since he had a band called Celestial Shore. So if you don't know Sam's old band Celestial Shore, they are a crazy math rock prog band. And when I first met Sam in 2011, he was like he's very quiet and he was like, "Yeah, I have this band Celestial Shore." And I like went home and put it on and I was like, "This is my favorite band. I'm going to follow them till the end of the earth." And I literally like anytime they played, I would go see them. I would like drive to New Jersey or New York and try to go see Celestial Shore. And that band actually generated a lot of amazing talent. The other singer of that band is Empress of, if you're familiar with that project.
Yeah.
So that's a cool little nugget of information that not a lot of people know about. A lot of bands like Celestial Shore and then this band Ava Luna were kind of like sharing a lot of members and shows, and it was a really cool time in New York music, like post Dirty Projectors.
Cool. So we got put in touch by regular contributor to the channel, Dylan CV. I don't know how you know each other. I'm assuming you did a tour at some point together.
I know Dylan through Ron Gallo.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
That was how I met Dylan. And Ron, I've known from Philly for years and years. But yeah, Dylan is hilarious, and we always laugh. And he just did a T-shirt commercial for New
That's
Age
how,
Rage with me.
that's how that.
I really tried to make him say the dumbest things possible. So him and Ron, they're both great at doing stuff like that.
Cool. So before we go, I thought we'd play a little game. where you like so much music, you might just like everything that I'm about to say. But I thought we'd go through some of the more controversial artists in the history of the channel, bands that myself and my fellow taste like music uh, employees uh, have disagreed on over the years. So
Okay.
you can settle it. You can thumbs up, thumbs down, say if you think this is a good artist or a bad artist. Uh,
Ooh. All right, let's go.
I'm betting that you like most of these. Tom Waits.
Ooh. Okay. Can I give a this to Tom Waits right now?
Sure.
Because Tom Waits used to be this for me, and then I think as the materials aged a little bit, it's doing more this.
Interesting.
Um, I love Swordfish Trombones and Rain Dogs. I think those are two perfect records. But I do think that the shtick is wearing a little thin for me.
All right. Shtick, you heard it here.
It's a little shticky.
I don't entirely disagree.
Yeah.
All right, the Monkees.
Uh, I've never really liked them, but yeah, I'm gonna have to give them a thumbs down. Oh, it hurts.
Team Cram.
It hurts because they all seem so sweet, but it's not for me.
Maybe you won't like any of these. Who knows? Billy Joel.
I like Billy Joel.
All right.
I'm afraid to admit that for some reason. There's a part of me that feels anxiety saying I like Billy Joel, but uh, I've just had like a moment with moving out a couple months ago, and I was like, I think I like Billy Joel.
Have you heard the new song?
I can't even. I'm not interested.
Fair enough. All right. Uh, Three Dog Night.
Ooh, no.
Hmm,
Big no.
interesting. PJ Harvey.
Oh, two thumbs up. Can do no wrong.
Porcupine Tree.
I don't know enough about them. So my answer is neutral because you'd think I would. You'd think I would know more about them. I've met them. I don't. I know nothing.
All right. Well, those are the big ones that I thought
Oh
were like
man.
the most. You want to keep going? I can pull out
Yeah, I
some.
do. Yeah, please. Come
All
on.
right.
This is so fun.
Okay. Let's see. How about Boston?
Ooh, no.
Uno? No Boston?
Ooh,
Even like debut record Boston? No?
makes me feel nothing. Makes me feel like a hollow shell.
Have you heard have you heard their like last record they did?
No, no. And I'm sure I can already I can see the cover in my mind. And is it called like was the record called like Techno Reality or something?
It's called Life, Love, and Hope.
Oh, they are the Christian band?
I don't know what it is. When we're done here, I'll send you a track. It's insane. It's
I bet it is.
okay.
I love when old rockers make records like when Jethro Tull put out jtoll.com.
Yeah.
That's like the area. It's like if I get to that age and I start making records like that and only put them out on Digipack CD, like that's gonna be a good time.
Jethro Tull is one of the next artists that we're covering on the channel. So where are you on Tull in totality?
I think in totality I support Jethro Tull. Uh it but only because they occupy such a nostalgic space. Like the Who and Jethro Tull were these bands that like when I was 13 and 12 or 13 years old I was like this is the greatest music. There's no other music. And then I heard Prince, which I know Dylan does not like Prince, which like I don't know if you've heard it here first, but Dylan and I have had a lot of back and forth about Prince because I am a massive Prince fan.
Maybe season two. So we have this series going on right now, discovering Dylan between Joe and Dylan Seavey, where Dylan tries to educate Joe on Bob Dylan. Maybe season two is the two of you and you teaching Dylan to like Prince.
That'd be great. Or Stevie Wonder. I know he has a hard time with Stevie Wonder. I'm like, how could you not like Prince and Stevie Wonder? They are literally two of the greatest musicians to ever walk the planet. But that's just one man's opinion.
All right, so here's every month we have a poll on our Patreon of an artist for us to cover. And right now we have some big names on the poll. It's the biggest poll we've ever done.
Okay.
And so I want to know which one you would choose. We've got, let's see if I can remember them all. Prince is on there.
Hmm.
Van Morrison is on there.
Oh God.
Elvis Costello, Paul McCartney, and Tom Petty.
Okay. Like who am I picking out of all of them?
Yeah, who are you? Who's your number
I
one
got
of those?
I gotta go Paul McCartney, but strictly for the just like I mean the Beatles are so ingrained in my DNA. Like
No
my
Beatles, no Beatles. Wings included,
oh just Macca.
just Macca. Wings and solo, but no Beatles considered.
Ooh. Then I may have to go Prince. Because there is a lot of Macca that's like I mean there are some great post Wings records like Flaming Pie and Chaos and Creation in the Backyard. I think those are two great records. There's a lot of crap too. Um, but I mean that's not fair because McCartney is just so insanely good. He's one of the best singers of all time, best songwriters of all time. Um, Wow, you're really making me think about this. I think overall though Prince would have to win because of like the sheer amount of great solo music he has.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
haven't done a full dive on Prince. I feel like Prince and Paul McCartney's are almost like I love all the Wings stuff, and then there's some stuff after, and I feel like that's about the same amount of records of Prince that I'm gonna love because I feel like beyond the 80s, Prince gets pretty spotty. No, maybe.
It gets weird, but but the things that are good are really really exceptional. Yeah, you're catching me at a weird point in my life. I think if it were like 10 years ago, I'd be like McCartney all the way. I would never say Petty, but I love Petty. It's just that like Petty I think like there are certain artists that hit for people at a time in their life, and like the Replacements are one of those bands where like I know nothing about the Replacements. Even though like I hear a Replacement song, I'm like, that's sick, that sounds great, but like I'm never compelled to go further because like it's just when it hits you
I
that it
feel
has meaning.
there's certain bands that I feel like have such like incredibly like deep loyal fan bases that love them so much that feel to me like 99% of those people are people that were there at the jump, right?
Yep, yep.
Right. So like I feel that way a little bit about REM and the Replacements. Some of these bands where their fans are intense,
Yeah.
but you don't meet a lot of people that got into REM post like 1995.
I agree with that. REM was a phenomenon of its time, and I don't yeah, maybe I'm just not talking to the right people, but like they don't really come up as far as like you know what I've been listening to a lot of these days is like Automatic for the People.
Yeah.
It just doesn't come up that much. Like REM was one of my first favorite bands, so they hold a special place in my heart, and like Losing My Religion was such a big song for me growing up. But uh yeah, that's a great point. I think Replacements in REM and a lot of the college rock stuff, like if it didn't hit you at a certain time, it just didn't hit you. I'm sure it's that way with like the Pixies for a lot of kids too, or like yeah, there's a lot of stuff in era. You just kind of had to be there.
Yeah, I agree. And I get a lot of crap for not like loving those bands as much as maybe that those people feel I should. But I don't know, there's something about it that just
Yeah.
eh, or maybe it's just me. I don't know.
No, I get that. I get that. I'm totally with you on that.
All right. Well, thanks for taking the time to do this. I hope everyone watching goes and checks out your record. You want to tell them like specifically when it comes out and where they can get it and all that stuff.
Absolutely. It comes out April 26, 2024 on 30 Tigers. You can pre-save it. You can listen to the first single, Lose Our Minds. And then I have a tour. And it's actually coming through Pittsburgh, but it's coming through a lot of spots. Go to ericslick.com, buy tickets now, buy them early. The stage show is going to look like Pee-wee's Playhouse. It's going to be super fun. So,
Sweet.
yeah.
All right. Everyone check it out. Thanks for watching. Hit the like button, subscribe, all that stuff. See you in the next one.
Bye.